Well, thank you for joining us. Today we're going to be addressing the Payroll Protection Program loan forgiveness process. Maybe you're a business that received the PPP and now you want to move to that next step. You want to actually have it off your books. You want it forgiven. You feel comfortable that you've likely made the steps and the requirements to have it forgiven. Well, let's just get rid of it, right? Well, that's a common feeling that we're hearing right now from our clients, and we want to address some of the things to think about as it relates to the loan forgiveness. What we should be doing right now, what we should be pushing off, and some of the nuances within the actual application. So join us here for the rest of the video as we do a deep dive into the actual forgiveness application and some of the things to think about. Well, thank you again for joining us. My name is John Sluice, president here at Intrust CPA. We're putting these videos together based on some of the feedback that we're hearing from our clients on what's that pulse that they're dealing with right now. What's the particular topic that's out there that they're feeling of urgent or need or have questions on. In today's topic is the loan forgiveness part of the Payroll Protection Program. So many of our business owners sought that particular program, received the funding. If you haven't received that funding, definitely go check out some of our other videos that we've got posted on things to do and how to get that and how to apply. It's not too late to actually apply for the loan. So if you don't have it, you should definitely be thinking about it, especially if you're, say, a sole proprietor. Maybe you just filed your tax return and you have the information now. Definitely go think about it. Give us a call. But today's video, we're going to be dealing about the second phase, which is how do you have it forgiven? Many business owners are saying, you know what, I've got the loan, I want to move off and I want it off the books, I want it taken care of. And what are we going to be doing? What do we need to be thinking about here as it relates to the forgiveness application and the forgiveness process? So the first thing I want to address here is that question of I want it done, I want it gone off my books. And believe me, as the accountant that likes ticking in things off my to-do list, I want these loans forgiven sooner than later. There's the concern as whether or not things are going to change and how does that mean and what does that involve into for having this forgiven. I want it gone. Well, unfortunately, I am not aware of any banks right now that are even accepting applications for the forgiveness. So as much as we want to get this through and off our books, it's just not ready yet. It's close. I'm seeing initial guidance come through from various banks and saying that they're close. The form is actually out on the SBA website, so you can go and actually kind of do a mock process of the forgiveness application, but most banks are not accepting them. So as much as I want to say that we should just jump in and get this forgiven, unfortunately it's just not there yet. Where I do see it happening is likely in the months of August, September, and October. That's really where I see most of these applications coming through. I don't see a push and a need to be the first one in line to get these applications out there. I do have several clients, or we have several clients that are wanting to push and get this, and I get it. We understand we want this off of our plate. We want these gone, but they're just not ready yet. And so for those of you that are in that court, just have that patience, know that it's coming, and know that as we see these processes, these revamps and these adjustments, they're on version 3 of the application for the forgiveness already. And what we've noticed is that each round it's getting simpler and simpler. And they're looking for more and more, less and less information, I'm sorry. So they are looking for less and less information on each round of these applications. And so there definitely is good cause to want to wait a little bit before you ask for this forgiveness. In fact, there is circulation out there right now they're talking about if you had a loan below $150,000, they may automatically forgive it. And so there is definitely some reasons and some good arguments for waiting before you apply. So that first thing I want to just hit with everybody here is that if you have this angst and you want this gone, you're not alone, but just know that the intent of this is to get those funds out, and then the next phase for the forgiveness, it's going to come. It will be there. And don't worry about that and just keep plugging along. taking the next step, the second item that I commonly see is, well, I got this PPP loans and I have it sitting here. I can't spend it yet because I haven't done this application. That's not the intent. The intent of this loan is that you use it. These funds are meant to be used. And so if you've got them sitting inside of a separate account and you've been afraid to draw on it, don't be afraid to draw on it. Give us a call. Don't use them willy-nilly, but at the same time, don't let it just sit there. Don't hesitate to use those dollars. That's what they're intended for. So know that it's okay to start using those dollars. So now as we step into the actual process of the forgiveness, if with the caveat of saying it's still being revamped and it's still being looked at, the actual application is out that the SBA is providing to the banks. Now most banks are then taking it and putting it to an online process that they're going to be going through, and they're going to be having you use their own particular bank form so that way it streamlines their back-end process. So just know that what I'm referring to here is the actual SBA application, not necessarily the actual bank one. But on the actual SBA, most of our clients that we're working with, and what I would strongly urge most to try to work for, is the EZ forgivable application. So it is the PPP loan forgiveness application. It's the 3508EZ. That form is actually only one page. The numbers are one page long, and then there's a second page for the certifications. There's really very limited calculations on that actual form. It's fairly straightforward, and so many of you that are watching this this video here should feel comfortable doing this application yourself. That's one thing I'm telling clients, that if you really want to get a jump start on it, download that application, read through the instructions. The instruction sheets are 4 pages long, and the actual application is 2 pages. If you don't feel comfortable reading those instructions, you probably shouldn't be doing the form itself, because it's less about the numbers that are on the form, and it's more about making sure you feel comfortable with what's behind it and what's in those instructions and what's there. And so to that end, I'd point to several of our other videos that we've got on going through and defining all the different definitions that are inside of that actual application, and what's a qualifying cost versus what's not a qualifying cost, and what's an allowable period and what's not an allowable period. But go through that application. You'll find it is quite straightforward as you look through and work through it. And specifically as it relates to the question of the 8-week versus the 24-week. And as we get into that, and I'm going to dive into, should we do the 8-week or the 24-week? But what you're going to find is that because of this extension, because the expansion there from the 8-week to the 24-week, there should be very limited number of individuals or businesses that are out there that actually have to rely on utility costs, on these other costs, the rent, the interest, because you likely are going to qualify under the payroll number alone. And so that's where I'm telling most business owners to look at is say, hey, in all likelihood, you're going to come up with the amount that you're using, that you asked for the application for, and that you actually got funded for, is going to come in just payroll alone. And so if you can use and print off your payroll reports and have that as support and just use that payroll number, man, that's going to make it so much easier and so much more straightforward, and you don't have to worry about all these other nuances with the, is it allowable, is it not allowable? It's just going to likely be off the payroll numbers themselves. So that did get into the 8-week versus the 24-week. That's a common question that we get asked. Can I do the 8-week? And if I do, should I do it over the 24-week? You certainly can. I personally, and then the others here at the office, see very limited reasons as to why we would actually take an 8-week versus the 24-week. So when in doubt, you will likely default to the 24-week option, just because it's going to allow you to have a longer period and, for all practical purposes, more beneficial calculations. There are a few times where the 8-week may make sense. Where we're seeing that in the actual back-end calculations is there is a safe harbor that's out there that you have to certify towards that relates to, did you decrease wages? Well, that decrease, that comparative period, is the period that you use for your the period that you're using for payroll. So if you use an 8-week, it's using the annualized wages over that 8-week period as compared to the 24-week period. And so if you paid your employees more during the 8-week period, that 8-week number might actually make more sense. Versus if you paid on average more on the 24-week period, you'll likely go towards the 24. So if we practically step back and think about that, most businesses were shut down or had less payroll earlier in the whole COVID process here than they did later. And so most businesses are going to be on the 24-week versus the 8-week. Where that 8-week may make sense is if you did some significant bonuses to get some of your employees back in play. That may make sense. But again, then that 8-week, those bonuses still are counted in the 24-week. So hear from me at this point that if in doubt, you are likely going to go for the 24-week. But we can certainly evaluate and think through as to what makes the most sense. But ultimately, what's going to be in part of this is when you go through the actual application, you're going to ask yourself 2 key critical questions. Did you pay your employees the same or more than you did during the applicable period? So the applicable period is January 1st through March 31st. So are you paying them more or less? And if you paid them more, you can go through the EZ process. And then also, do you have the same number of employees than you did during the applicable period? And so there again, if you have more employees now than you did later or before, you're probably going to be able to qualify for the EZ. In addition, there's a few new caveats that are in there. And so I'm going to read the one, and the one says, the borrower was unable to operate during the COVID or the covered period at the same level of business activity as before February 15th, 2020. What that's basically saying is if there's a reason that you couldn't operate, let's think mandates of being shut down, you almost have a get out of jail free card within these. And so there is a lot of legroom and a lot of room that's inside of this to be able to use this loan forgiveness. I have got 2 key takeaways for the video. One of these is, in all likelihood, 100% of this loan is going to be forgiven. That is the intent of that. And so as a business owner, you can feel quite comfortable knowing that in all likelihood, the loan is going to be 100% forgiven. If you have any concerns as to why it's not going to be, we should be talking, because the default answer is it's likely going to be 100% forgiven. When I say that, I'm saying that in the sense of you've continued business and business is back to normal or is almost back to normal. If you've shut down and you're not open, we should probably talk through it. Or if you've decreased your employee base, we should talk through it. But if you're operating at or close to the same threshold as what you were before, you likely are going to have it be forgiven. And even within that, I'm going to point out that they've laxed and opened up the ability to what you can qualify as to have an employee being asked for. So if you've asked an employee to come back and they aren't or they choose not to, they are not in the counts here as to reduction in number of employees. So there's a lot of legway and a lot of leeway inside of this as to allow us to be able to get that forgiveness that's in place there. So again, what I'm stressing here is that read through that actual application, the 3508EZ. Get comfortable with it. If it's something that you're going to do yourself, get comfortable with the instructions and do you qualify, do you not? If you don't qualify for the EZ, you probably shouldn't be doing the application yourself and you should be talking with either us or another professional. But if you do think you can qualify, know that the calculations are fairly straightforward, can be done quite quickly, and it's going to come into, do you feel comfortable with knowing all the definitions? And as you read through it, ask yourselves during this time, am I going to be the one that's doing this, or are you going to rely on a professional to go through and help you with those? Those are some of the things that you can be doing right now for when the actual application comes through in, say, later August, September, or October that we see there. So definitely go for the EZ if you possibly can. That is going to be key and critical. So a few missives, if you will, or some items that are just more ancillary to this, but I want to kind of talk through. And the second key takeaway is this application process for the forgiveness. It is not automatic. You have to initiate the forgiveness process. So if you don't fill this form out or you don't go through the process, it's not going to be automatically forgiven. We were hoping it would be, and there's a possibility that if you're below 150,000, it may be, but as of right now, it is not automatic, and you have to go through that process. It's a fairly straightforward process, but you have to initiate it. A second thing to think about here inside this little miscellaneous category is if you're a sole proprietor, the calculation is fairly straightforward. It's a calculation only. So all these safe harbor items that I'm talking about, the number of FTEs, the number of employees or not, it doesn't apply to you. It's just a straight calculation. And so you're probably going to fit into this first box and this first wave of applications, because there's really no reasons that you're going to have to wait until later, say the December 31st safe harbor, as we're recommending for some others to do. And then this third thing to just kind of keep in mind is many businesses also receive the EIDL advance. You'll note on the application there's a line item inside of there, but the actual form and the way that it calculates through, it almost appears like they're ignoring that. They've issued guidance behind the scenes and said that they are going to be reducing the forgivable amount by the amount of your advance. And so be aware that there's this little catch there that says that that advance in all likelihood is still going to be a loan to the bank. And so you're going to have this lingering little cliff or this lingering little stub loan that's there that you're going to want to think about. How do you deal with it? Are you going to pay it off at the end, or what are you going to do for that? So that's something also to talk through with your professional to make sure you've thought through that strategy. And then perhaps the biggest thing that I can tell you right now to be thinking about as it relates to the application and as it relates to the forgiveness is to understand the tax impact of this. So by definition, the forgiveness is not a taxable event, which is unusual, but the forgiveness of this loan is not taxable. So at first blush, it would appear that there's not going to be a tax impact of this. However, there's a big caution with this. So while the loan itself is not taxable, the proceeds that you use that loan for and with, you cannot deduct those either. So if you're a business that shut down for 3 months and your revenue really dropped by the amount that your loan was for, well, there's not going to be an issue. So hypothetically, let's say you had a $100,000 loan. If your revenue went down by $100,000, probably not going to have a taxable issue. But let's say you're a business that the revenue went down a little bit, but then it just compressed. So maybe you're in the construction industry and yes, you were closed for 2 months or a month and a half, but then when you opened, the same amount of work was there, but it was just compressed inside of it. So now all of a sudden you have this $100,000 loan and your revenue is the same year over year. But this particular year, your expenses, that payroll that you're using this for, aren't deductible. Well, if your revenue stayed the same and those expenses are not deductible, you are more profitable and therefore more taxable. So there's a big iceberg that's waiting to be considered and thought about, and that if I can stress enough, is that there's a potential for a tax liability that's out there. So we have to be thinking about tax planning as it relates to this. So as you're looking at the forgiveness application, at the same time be asking yourself, what are the tax implications? They may not be there. They may be able to be reduced by buying some more equipment or giving bonuses or doing other things, but you can't just assume that. And so just be aware that that is a big thing that's looming out there that you have to be aware of. So to sum this all up, if I were to kind of highlight a few items, number one, the application for forgiveness, it's not automatic. So it is something that you're going to have to initiate and you're going to have to go through the process. Whether you do it yourself or you have a professional do it, it's up to you to do it, not the bank. So you need to take responsibility for it. Second is, don't push yet. I know that we want to get it off our to-do list. We want it gone. We want it just to be clean and forgiven. Unfortunately, you can't go there yet. It's not available. It's soon. It's close. If you want to do something right now, download the form. Go through it, ask yourself, get prepared. What are some of the the expenses you're going to be able to use? Do you qualify for these tests to make sure you can use the EZ form? And go through those, but just know that you can't actually apply yet for the forgiveness. The third item, tax planning is crucial this year. That if you receive the PPP loan, you need to be thinking as to whether you're going to have a tax liability, which it seems strange given that the potential might be down and that your revenue might be down, but we're seeing it across the board that there's a tax liability that's out there that we need to watch for. Watch for the little catches. Watch for those little things that cut off, like that EIDL loan, that stump loan that might be stuck there. So there are little catches inside of this. So there's more to it than just the simple form. So as you read through it, don't hesitate to give us a call. Don't hesitate to talk to your professional or your accountant or your banker. They're there answering questions. Just know that you're not alone in these. Know that there are many businesses that are going through this process, and hopefully you find yourself in the back end of this, that you found that you got this loan, it came through where it needed to do, did what it needed to do to help promote the business, the continuing and restarting of the business, and now you're able to move on and continue on through your programs. Well, and thank you for joining us. We appreciate your attention and for staying all the way to the end of the video here. Please know we're here to answer any questions. We look forward to talking to you about this or any other topics that you may have questions on.